internet memes to promote critical thinking. And this idea came to me in a offhanded conversation I had with a student. I just asked the student in a small talk, how are your other classes going? And she responded with enthusiasm, they're going really well. One of my classes, we get to make memes. And I didn't think anything of it. I went back to my office and continued to do whatever I was doing, and it kind of stuck with me. It's like, well, she was really happy to be making memes, and Kent State is a very traditional college with a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds, and I know I enjoy internet memes. So I was trying to think, well, how can I work this into my class? So there were two goals to this, and one, I thought, well, I can use memes for critical thinking, promoting critical thinking, enhancing their critical thinking skills, and I could possibly make them think. Kind of the secondary goal would be thinking about what they see on the internet, because at this time that I created this assignment and gave it to the class, President Trump had just entered office, and so there was a lot of the whole fake news stuff going on. There's a lot of skepticism over there was a lot of false information being spread on the internet, and I thought, well, maybe if I can get students to make memes and have to build an argument around them, they can enhance their critical thinking skills, and when they see them on the internet, they might think about what actually is factual that goes into that meme, because it's really hard. The traditional meme is an image with words, and it's really hard to be factually accurate or really make a full policy position in 4 or 5 words to fragments of a sentence. So I based this in active learning techniques we know increase knowledge retention, and innovative assignments can motivate students. They can even bring students to your major. So I thought this would be a fun assignment that would be well received, that kind of would trick them into learning. As you know, sometimes you have to do. Your students don't show up always wanting to write an argumentative essay because it's good for their education. So to define a meme is a piece of culture, typically a joke, which gains influence through online transmission. So the term meme, and I didn't know this until I decided to write the paper, actually comes from Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene. And so it's got a different context in it with it when it's for the internet. But it's something that spreads very quickly. And so I thought, well, how can I use these memes to promote critical thinking in political science courses? So, we know it's important. I always tell my students that, what you're getting, especially when you have to defend social science going on in the job market, what am I going to do with a political science degree? Well, whatever you major in, you should be walking away with critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills and these skills that employers in all fields are looking for. So I thought, well, if I have them make memes to demonstrate critical thinking and build an argument or pick apart arguments with facts, then I can accomplish something and they can have fun. And of course I thought, well, how do I decide whether they're thinking critically? How do I figure out that there's actual critical thinking going on here? So I use a couple of tools. Fitzgerald and Baird identify different types of statements that are used when people are exhibiting critical thinking, and then the Watson-Glaser critical thinking appraisal, which splits critical thinking into different levels. So what I did, I had the students had to create their own meme with either an image that is a typical meme image that is popular on the internet, or one of their own images. So you could take a picture. I said, don't be too mean to grandma if you're going to talk about generational differences, but you could meme your grandmother, take a picture of her, and whatever. I let them do whatever they wanted as long as it was not over the top disrespectful. So students had to create their own meme and their own caption. It had to be, of course, related to U.S. politics or policy, so they choose to make some type of policy stance. A lot of them wrote about Betsy DeVos because she had just been put in place, and a lot of them were education majors, so a lot of them were critical of her. Some of them talked about campus politics, what it's like to be a conservative on campus, those types of things. And along with that meme, I had them write a short essay. So they had to write very brief, 1 to 2 pages, because the class also included an argumentative essay, which was a much bigger part of their grade. So I didn't want to make them do too much writing for an intro level with 121 students. And I didn't have a TA, so, within my own best interest, too. So I had them write a short essay explaining their meme and defending the position. They had to cite sources defending the position that they take in the meme. And this is an example of one of the ones I thought was pretty good. Trump, we should take the immigrants and move them somewhere else. Now, this meme is called Push It Somewhere Else, Patrick. And Patrick Star is a character in SpongeBob SquarePants. That's right. I wrote a scholarly journal article. I got to write about SpongeBob SquarePants. Now I'm at an academic conference talking about SpongeBob SquarePants. I love my job. So Patrick Star is a dim-witted character in the town of Bikini Bottom in the show SpongeBob SquarePants. And Push It Somewhere Else, Patrick originally comes from the series where there's an episode where there's a problem facing Bikini Bottom, and this dim-witted character decides to come up with the solution of, why don't we just move the whole town? We'll just take Bikini Bottom, we'll move it somewhere else. So this student is criticizing President Trump's stance on immigration using the dim-witted character, comparing him to the dim-witted character in Bikini Bottom in SpongeBob SquarePants, Patrick Star. And he relates it to, he basically argues, the student argues that in the essay that his immigration policy of trying to round up everybody is impossible, and he also talks about the first travel ban. This is where the example gets a little bit confusing, because the first travel ban was struck down by the courts. The last one was, so this was a couple years ago, year and a half. So the first thing I did was I went through the different examples and I coded for the different types of statements when I went through the essays. And I found the factual statements, normative statements, interpretive statements, and causal statements. But it's not just about using the statements. Anyone can stumble into these things. What about the Watson-Glaser different levels of thinking? And so, Push It Somewhere Else, Patrick, as an example, I coded for the different levels of thinking. Some students used all of them. Some students didn't use as many levels. But you can see where this student uses inference, recognition of assumptions, deductions, and makes an interpretation based on evidence, and evaluates arguments. So this was not something that I had multiple sections of. I also could not set up an experimental design, so I can't say like statistically what works or doesn't work. I did ask the students if they thought that I passed out a survey and asked the students if they thought that the assignment was good for their critical thinking skills. A lot of them said yes, but then again, like, did I explain critical thinking well enough to them for them to fully understand what critical thinking is? I hope so, but that probably varies. They really enjoyed the assignment, and I have. So I think that doing something like this, these political memes, can be used in the classroom to promote critical thinking and make students draw connections between factual information and maybe even make them more skeptical of what they see on the internet, because they see what it takes to try and defend a position in such a small space. If I had a smaller class at the time or in the future, I would recommend that instructors provide feedback and allow for revision, because that's a good way to get students to think more about what they're writing. Of course, revision is always a good thing. And the other thing I thought about doing was having students trade their essays and be critical. So now they're not only building an argument, but then they're taking down somebody else's. So they would have to critique somebody else's argument and provide them feedback, kind of a peer review style. And if you can explain the different levels of critical thinking from the Watson-Glaser appraisal, you can have students identify the different types of statements they used, go back through their own essays and highlight and code the different levels of thinking that they used. So thank you for inviting me out here today. I look forward to any questions, comments, and of course you should be reading the Journal of Political Science Education.